Good morning, everybody. I hope that you are having an amazing day today and that your night went extremely well and life is treating you awesome today. It's Tuesday. I'm going to touch on a subject today that is extremely important. I don't know if any of you watch the news, but there was a soap opera star that was found dead yesterday. Or maybe it was the day before. I can't. Good job! I'm glad, Jake! Woohoo! But The Young and the Restless, there's a star. He was an African American man, and he actually paved the way for African Americans to be in the soap opera field. His name was Christophe St. John. He played the role of Neil. Good morning, Janice. And yesterday he was found dead. Now, I haven't gotten confirmation of this. However, there are stories circulating that he has committed suicide or had committed suicide. In 2014, I do believe he had a son, and his son committed suicide. I think he was bipolar, and then maybe later found out that he was schizophrenic, and his son wouldn't take his medication, and they found him dead one day by suicide. One thing I can tell you is that suicide is actually contagious. And I know that sounds pretty wild as to say something like that. But when somebody commits suicide, what they end up doing is passing on their pain to the rest of the family. And therefore, if it happens to hit another person that perhaps is suffering from some sort of mental illness, that suicide will then end up affecting them to the point where they try to commit suicide as well. A little background from me. I have actually had a lot of people in my life who have committed suicide. In high school, I had a friend, his name was Greg, and you never would have guessed that he would be one to be found hanging from a rafter in his garage. He had hung himself in high school. I do believe I was in 10th grade. The crazy thing about that was that he had called me a few nights prior, and just kind of, it was a different phone call, but because I didn't understand anything about suicide, there were so many signs in that phone call going back, and had I known the signs, maybe, just maybe. And then around 2008-ish, I do believe, it may have been prior to that, a boyfriend of mine from high school, while we were in high school, we were together, I had found out that he had committed suicide. I remember where I was at when I heard. His name was Craig, and Craig was actually very good friends with Greg. So there is that passing on of suicide. Then my ex-husband's brother, so my ex-brother-in-law, committed suicide. I had a boyfriend in high school that his grandpa committed suicide. And the most recent person to commit suicide that I knew was my daughter and her boyfriend's best one of the best friends. They had a little group of friends that always hung out, and Brandon was one of those friends, and Brandon never ever showed any signs of wanting to commit suicide that anybody picked up on. And The thing is, there is such a thing as situational suicide. And what happens with situational suicide is something in life, a major event, and sometimes it doesn't have to be real major. It just has to be something that kind of knocks you off your feet, and it takes a toll on a person. So it's not a person that has dealt with depression in their life per se. It is more a situation happened. It knocked them off their feet and put them in a hole that they didn't think that they could get out of. And the result is attempting suicide or actually committing suicide. Situational suicide happens so much. I mean, actually, in all honesty, people that suffer from depression and bipolar and all of that stuff, actually, there's usually a situation that surrounds that as well. But because a person that has depression or anxiety or anything like that, it doesn't have to be a major event for that to take a toll, the final toll. Untreated depression is the number one cause for suicide. And that's where we have got to do better. I know I have said over and over again that there are different signs of a person that is depressed. There are different symptoms per se. It doesn't have to be somebody that's always crying in their bedroom. It can be somebody that is actually going on with life but just isn't living life, is only doing what they can to survive. And if we leave depression untreated in somebody and we don't urge that person to get help, there is a greater risk for the person who is depressed to attempt suicide, and therefore there's a chance that their attempt could become final. So I want to go over some signs of somebody who may be thinking about suicide. And some of these are going to be like kind of, obviously. But there are going to be a few that, you may not have thought of. So a person that talks a lot about death, or is... I don't know what the word I want is. They talk about death. They're looking up death on the computer. They're really interested in what happens on the other side. And that can be a major sign that a person may be thinking about attempting suicide. And I also want you to know that these signs that I give you, it's not often that only one sign means that person is going to commit suicide. There's usually a multiple signs. That's why it's hard, because we think that the person that is going to commit suicide is going to do it laying in their bed, crying, and just things like that. So I need you to keep in mind all these signs, because if you get into 3 to 4, 5 signs, you need to be there for that person, and you need to be there quickly. So talking about suicide, writing about suicide, talking about death, the other side, things like that. There is a natural curiosity for what happens on the other side. So that's why I want to say that if that's all they're doing is thinking, I wonder what's over there, that in itself probably isn't a sign. It's going to be more than just that. Withdrawing from friends and family. If you have somebody in your life that you all of a sudden, they're not coming around, or they're not returning your text or your phone call. um they've just withdrawn from it all, and maybe not just in their bedroom withdrawn, but just withdrawn from life itself. They may still go to work. They may still do things that they have to do, but the things that are normal for them to do and for normal for them to be, if they're all of a sudden not showing up for some reason, I would give a call to that person. When you talk to somebody and they are feeling hopeless, if they are saying this is never going to get better, I'm sick of living my life like this, it's never going to go away, I'm always going to be depressed, or things of that nature, just being hopeless about life. Being hopeless about a situation, like if you're talking about, yeah, it's never going to get better at work, I'm just so sick of this at work, that's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about life in general being, it's never going to get better, I can't handle this anymore, it's just hopeless for me. And then there's another feeling of feeling helpless. When a person gets to the point that they cannot, there's nothing they can do. They're hopeless in life, and there's nothing that they can do. There's nothing to reach out. There's nowhere for them to help with the situation. They don't think that talking is going to help. They feel helpless in raising their children, and helpless in just life in general. And I'm sorry that I am stuttering a lot through all of this, but it is really because it has touched my life so much, and because I have been there and attempted suicide many times, and because I do have the thoughts of suicide often. It's kind of hard to come out and speak about these things with and try to be objective in the real world and not just on myself. So in Jalen, you're right. That one situation could make it all spiral. That's why I'm saying that for, let's say a boyfriend broke up with you, and yes, for those of you who are watching this, Jalen is the daughter that I was speaking of, who had her friend commit suicide, and she has just written that Brandon only messaged her about one situation that he was upset about. And that's all it took for Brandon, because he was gone the next day. So, yeah, that situation can spiral. The situation can spiral into other situations, to other. It's a domino effect, per se. But then there's also strong feelings of anger and rage. It's about everything is messed up in life, and the person is mad about everything, or yourself. And I hope that if you are feeling any of these thoughts, that you feel my heart and know that I'm here for you. But anyways, you're angry. Nothing is working out, and nobody is doing what they're supposed to do, and the kids aren't picking up their toys, and you're pissed off, and the world just isn't working the way it's supposed to work, and that anger is rage, and you're not understanding it, and as a person looking at the other person, you're not understanding it. So that is another sign. So it's not all sadness, it's not all crying and things like that. It can be anger at a situation, anger at everything. The feeling of being trapped. Like I said, that hopeless feeling of you're not going to be able to get out of this. when you're in a relationship, and let's say it's an abusive relationship, and you feel trapped, you can't leave because of your financial situation, and you feel that the only way out is to commit suicide, or you feel that you've lost your job, you're going to lose your home, and you can't, you're trapped, and that feeling of not being able to reach out is intense, and you just are trapped. And sometimes it's being trapped in your own mind. That's a place that is so scary, is to be trapped in your thoughts. And then there's when a person is experiencing drastic mood changes. And I say this because when a person is bipolar, they have some drastic, and I'm talking drastic, mood changes. One day they are upset and feeling helpless and hopeless, and the next day they are shopping and spending money and not sleeping and not being able to slow down. And then again you see them, then they're depressed and they won't get out of bed. Those are signs that an impending depression could lead that person into a suicide attempt. Abusing drugs or alcohol, because you're trying to self-medicate. You're trying to make these thoughts go away. So you have a drink to try to settle down, or you take a drug to make it all go away. I've said before that I believe that 99% of the drug addicts and alcoholics have a problem because there is and this is my own opinion. I don't think there's anything out there to back it up, but I wholeheartedly believe that a person that is abusing drugs or alcohol, there's an underlying mental illness there, and we need to be mindful of that when we know somebody that is suffering from that. A change of personality. And this one might blow your mind, because if there is an impending suicide attempt, it's coming. The change of personality is from a person who has been sad and depressed and hopeless and all of those things, withdrawn, and then all of a sudden they're coming around again. But as they're coming around, they are telling you that if I were to ever die, this is what I would want at my funeral. If I were to die in a car accident tomorrow, this is what I would want somebody to dress me in. They're smiling, they're happy, but at the same time, they're talking about death. And this is especially important if a person has been in a depressed state for a period of time. When somebody is all of a sudden happy, and you see them just, it's just different. The change of personality is different. They're giving away prized possessions. That's huge. If somebody is handing you something that you know means the world to them, and there isn't a reason for it, like a wedding or a baby or something like that, if there isn't a reason for this person to be giving away prized possessions, that's something you really need to pay attention to, because they want you to have a piece of them when they're gone. Please pay attention to that one. They may be happy, they may be, whatever, but there's no reason for them to be giving you a prized possession. Talk to that person. Find out why are you doing this? There could be a good reason behind it, but I need you to be very mindful as to why they're giving things away. If somebody is acting impulsively, if they're doing things that are out of the norm, going shopping and spending their whole check, changing something around that it's just an impulsive thing for them to do. Pay attention to that. A person that it's an impulsive action to attempt to commit suicide. So being an impulsive person when they aren't previously to that is something to be mindful of. Losing interest in activities. I've told you about that, when they just quit showing up and nobody's around, and or they're losing interest in it all. Like for me, I crochet my blanket and I just don't do it anymore. Or just things that are normal for the person, they have quit doing, they've lost interest in activities. That's something to be mindful of. Change in sleeping habits, eating habits, those are huge. There could be a medical reason for it, but it also could be because depression has hit, and they need help. Not caring about a person's work performance, school performance. If all of a sudden somebody who normally it takes pride in their work just doesn't care anymore, it's extremely important to take note of that. There could be a reason as to why they just quit caring, screw it, I'm not going to do this anymore. But if there isn't a reason and they just quit caring, that's a sign. Writing a will, that's huge. I mean, my husband and I have talked about our will, who would take the house and things like that. That's one thing. But if I sit here and I start marking down everything that where I want to go where, that is a sign. I mean, I'm getting older, obviously, so I do talk about things and where I want things to go. But when you really begin to have a plan for death without an underlying illness, that is something you need to be mindful of. And I'm sorry I keep saying that it's something you need to be mindful of, but it just is. If a person is feeling excessive guilt and shame, that you need to pay attention to that. If a person made a mistake and they can't seem to get over that mistake, pay attention. Pay attention, because that could mean that the obsessive thoughts are getting to them. Suicide will affect everybody at one point in your life. And it sucks. It sucks. And it sucks when you're the person that is thinking about suicide. I've been there multiple times. But something that we need to think about is that the emotions that are causing the suicidal feelings, they will pass. Nothing in life is permanent, ever. Well, even tattoos. I was going to say tattoos are, but no. You can go get them removed. Nothing in life is permanent. There is always a fix to something, or an antidote, or there is no permanent anything. So if you find yourself in the midst of thinking of suicide, please remember that whatever it is you're feeling, it will pass. The pain that you're feeling will pass. Just please reach back and ask for a little extra strength. And you've got it. You can do it. Do not confuse the pain that you're feeling with ending your life. What you're feeling right now at this moment, it'll pass. All happiness passes. Sadness passes. Time is the greatest thing of all. Whatever you're feeling, that feeling of pain will pass. The thoughts that you're thinking about suicide are likely caused by an imbalance of the chemicals in your brain. I know that sounds scary. We've got to get over the I feel crazy, because that's not what an imbalance is. An imbalance is an illness. It's just a mental illness. It's no different than being sick with a cold. Medication and time, and you do have to work, but you can overcome. You can overcome these feelings of suicide. If somebody tells you that they're going to commit suicide, dear God, please pay attention. Sometimes you may think that a person is saying that for attention. And it's very possible. It's very possible that the person that is telling you that they want to die or that they're going to commit suicide, they may need your attention. But dear God, if they say it, get them help. Allow them the attention that they deserve. And Janice, you're right. Some sadness doesn't pass. When my dad passed away, and to this day, it's the worst pain that I have ever had. But you learn to deal with it, if that makes sense. You learn to cope. Sometimes what was normal before a situation in life, sometimes you have to make a new normal. My dad came over every morning, and had a coffee with me. And after he passed away, I had to come up with a new normal. And I still cry. It'll be 10 years in March that I lost my dad. So you're right. Some sadness doesn't pass, but we do learn, and we can learn to cope with that sadness. Your pain and your sadness does not need to equal death. Ew, Janice, my heart goes out to you. And I understand that no matter what you do, there's going to be times where you think of your children. And that pain is going to hit. But the pain doesn't mean that life is over. That pain actually means that you're still living. And it's okay to cry. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to throw your arms up. I get it. I really do. I don't think anything ever could measure to the loss of children. But new normals can help you through every day. If somebody tells you that they want to commit suicide, don't leave them. Listen to them. Listen to everything they're telling you. Allow them to talk. Do not pass judgment. You know, and you're right, Chris. You become a different person to live a different life, and that is so true. So true. and you live through the pain. So if somebody tells you they're going to commit suicide, like I said, don't leave them. Don't leave their side. Listen to them. Do not judge them, because the reason that they tell you that they may want to commit suicide may to you sound like stupid. You may think you're gonna die over that. That don't you dare ever say that to somebody that is thinking about ending their life. You need to listen to them. Just listen. Please don't offer advice if somebody has just told you that. Just listen. Take them to the hospital. Get them help. Call 911 if you need to. Do what you need to do to ensure that that person lives to see tomorrow. Be careful what you say, because when somebody is in that place in their mind, the littlest thing that you may not think is a big deal to say could just rock that person's world. Just listen. Just be there. Get them help. Tell them you love them. Tell them you're going to love them through it. Tell them you're not going to leave them. And then just listen. Never, ever keep suicidal intentions secret. If the person that has told you that they're going to commit suicide, I don't mean to giggle right now, but my dog is snoring, so if you're hearing it, that's why. But if somebody says that they're going to commit suicide, but please, please, please don't tell my parents. Don't tell my husband. Don't tell whoever. Don't keep it a secret. There are things that we can talk about in confidence, obviously. But don't you dare keep that a secret. If a person thinks that they want to commit suicide, they need help. And you need to be their help. And I know that there are people that don't believe in God. And I tell you a lot that I do. Sometimes God sends you to be the angel that that person needs. Be the angel. People that talk about committing suicide are in pain. They're hurting. They probably really don't want to die. They just want the pain to go away. That's why we need to love them through it. It's crazy that yesterday when I heard about the Young and the Restless Star that committed suicide, all the thoughts of all the people that have committed suicide in my life just came rushing through. I wish that I didn't have to hear that another person has attempted suicide or successfully attempted suicide. We need to be there for one another. We need to listen. We need to look for signs. We need to love. We need to take people seriously. I know that a lot of people don't like to get involved in others' lives. You know, it's none of my business. I imagine, how would you feel if you said, well, that's none of my business, and you woke up the next day to find out that that person had committed suicide? It's your business. It's your business to love somebody through their pain and help them get out on the other side. Pay attention, guys. Because the only way that we'll ever eradicate suicide is by love. And if you have to commit somebody or take them to the hospital, it's not bad. You are not letting somebody down by taking them to the hospital. You are not letting them down by calling 911. My God, you are not. You are not. You are saving a life. Don't worry if they're going to be mad. I would rather have somebody mad than dead. Pay attention. And love them through it. The hotline, it's the National Suicide Hotline number. It's at the top of the video. But it's 1-800-273-8255. Don't be afraid to call it. Don't be afraid to reach out. I love you guys, and I hope you have a great day. Let's try to get rid of the suicide attempts. Let's just love each other through it. I will see you tomorrow. I will be here, and I hope you will be too. And please don't ever forget that your story isn't over.